Um, Jose Luis.
Yeah.
So Tentacular is probably the most important event on digital culture happening in Madrid. It's not really stiff competition because there's not very many of them. But why did you decide last year, you and Bonnie, when you were thinking about this program, why was it important to have this event here in Madrid?
I guess we were very interested in thinking about how did you start talking about this thing that we used to call digital culture and that now is so really pervasive
Yeah.
that defining it or trying to boil it down to one space doesn't make much sense anymore.
Right.
In a moment real of systemic shock in a way, you know, for anybody who's been interested in a way in the political, social and cultural impact of technology for a long time, the years 2016 to 2018 were in a way like this really incredible systemic shock where suddenly online radicalization, the polarization that we were seeing in many societies channeled in many ways to social media, the dangers or supposedly the fascination with looming spaces that were creating a lot of unanswered questions like artificial intelligence and automation and the future of work. Suddenly we're creating, I think, like a real big crisis in what used to be a space that we always contemplated through its utopian potential, its capacity to help us to collaborate and improve things for the better. Suddenly felt that we were not there anymore. We were in a way in uncharted territory. So when we started working with the direction of Matadero, the question was, what do we really need to share now about the future of cultures around technology in a moment when we have lost many of the assumptions that we had about how this space could liberate us, could be like a space that was full of promise and opportunity. And there was not really a space or an event in Madrid that was actually making these questions or thinking about this, and also not in a cultural institution, which for us was obviously especially important because we thought that this is a conversation that we can only have from the space of culture, being this place in which we really can sit down and hypothesize and make questions about what is happening to us and how are we relating to each other in the middle of this series of systemic shocks. So this was really in a way the starting point of Tentacular and its reason of being. And Madrid is a really exciting city right now. I feel it's becoming much bigger than it itself think it is. It has a very powerful node of cultural institutions that are ready to, in a way, start incorporating new conversations and new projects. So it was the perfect place to start. So Julia, you've been actually working with us since the very beginning. This year you are co-directing the festival. You're based in London, until very recently you were based in New York. So Tentacular is actually also an event that is not only looking towards the city of Madrid, but to a global wide community of practitioners distributed throughout the whole globe. What do you expect, or what do you feel that as a meeting point, as a space for gathering people from different communities and different countries, the festival can be, or the project can be, so that in one level it exists in the city of Madrid, but in another level as one gathering spot for one highly distributed community that has a lot of intellectual exchanges throughout the year, but maybe doesn't meet physically that often.
Well, I mean, in today's globalized world, and especially as many of us live out most of our daily lives online, you know, the site specificity of Madrid is important, but increasingly the context in which we're all living and working today is greatly international. And so bringing together some of the world's leading artists and thinkers and writers who are looking at digital culture, but more broadly, thinking about the political, the economic, the sociological impact of this space is, I think, vital in framing these types of conversations, right? And what I love about Tentacular is that there is always this emphasis on bringing local voices into the fold and contextualizing it as part of these bigger conversations, because it is something that really needs to stitch together these two localities, these two temporalities, and we increasingly have to find ourselves sort of operating on multiple planes simultaneously, and considering issues from multiple perspectives and trying to see the bigger picture.
At some point when we were preparing the festival and we were thinking about what to touch this year, you came up with one concept that I have to confess I have never heard, which is a scientific term called extremophilia. What is extremophilia, and why this was an inspiring starting point for you to kind of include everything that I wanted to speak about this year?
Well, we started out playing around with a couple of discrete concepts that felt like they evoked the mood of the day. Love, adaptation, anxiety, and I was thinking about how to weave all of these things together. And at the time, I was showing the work of an artist named Jenna Satella in New York. And one of the pieces that she created is a piece called Seti, which is looking at extremophilic bacteria that's been colonizing Mars. I started kind of looking at the concept of the extremophile, which are these organisms that thrive in extreme conditions. So extreme cold, heat, acidity, and it's hypothesized that these types of extreme conditions are also what made up the primordial soup from which all life emerged, right? And so they're kind of these symbols of the externalities of what is typically considered as livable habitats and environments, but also they are the very kind of forefront of evolution, of what enables life to be possible. And when looking at the literal definition of extremophilia, extreme love, it seemed like such a beautiful metaphor and a way to kind of encapsulate all of these ideas of, on the one hand, adaptation and evolution, on the other hand, having to kind of navigate these increasingly extreme conditions, an increasingly extreme and polarized society, and then trying to address that from this place of extreme love, like radical empathy and embrace. It seemed like a really great way to sort of tie all of these themes together. Jose Luis, what are you most excited about in the festival this year?
There's so many stuff going on. We have new pieces that have been produced along with other international organizations and partnerships like Ryson, like IBM, that actually give us the opportunity to create new work and show it with artists like Wyndon Johnson, with collectives like these, who have become in a way some of the big storytellers of post-digital culture online. But also I'm very excited about the gathering of individuals who in a way are like storytellers in what is almost like a book of short stories, each bringing something to the table. And this includes from journalists who have really narrated the really deep transformations in the political and the economic spheres in the last 10 years, like Paul Mason, one of the most well-known faces in European journalism, to experimental musicians who are becoming icons like Holly Herndon and Mike Dryhorse, who is actually in a way a pioneer introducing the aesthetics, the iconography, and almost the ethics of coexisting with artificial intelligence in popular music in something that's going to be actually, I think, very interesting because it's going to see her and her collaborator, Mike Dreyhorst, alongside Evgeny Morozov, who has been one of the big, obviously, critical voices of the tech industry, but also one of the most influential people in the last 10 years defining how do we talk about and how do we think about what the tech industry is doing to us. So that's very interesting, but also some of our really favorite artists, designers, researchers. I mean, this category of person who I think is creating some of the most interesting work being produced today, like James Bridle, like Anab Jain, people who, from within the space of the contemporary art world, like Shuli Shan or Cecil B. Evans, are really actually also opening up a new spaces in the imagination for post-digital critique and thinking. And not only about the what, but about the how, you know? I think that we have increased the expectation of Tentacular to be an experience, which is highly narrative, highly staged in a way. It's almost like a collection of small set pieces, you know, small theater pieces, or sometimes more based on the visuals. Also this year we're going to have a lot of music, sound and image, which is something that we didn't have before, which shows by artists who are going to conclude every day by taking those ideas to probably a new level. It's only 3 days, but it's going to be so many things that are going to be happening here in Matadero. So we're going to be here for 3 days, creating like almost a temporal community. But what is left after that? I mean, what is our expectation that Tentacular is not only what happens under this roof for 3 days, but it extends somehow?
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of conversations about this in planning this year's event. And one of the things that I'm really excited about is this notion that we wanted to use the festival as a platform for new ideas and to get new work, new critical thinking, new artistic projects out into the world, which is one of the reasons why instead of doing one commission like we did with Zach Blass last year, we're doing 3 slightly smaller commissions, but commissions that are intended to be able to circulate online. So we've worked with Mariam Ghani and iBeam, with Ryndon Johnson and Rhizome, and with Nerea Calvillo and Dis to produce pieces that are going to debut here at the festival and then also circulate online or as mobile VR works in the case of Ryndon Johnson. We also invited one of my favorite new artist-run podcast / online magazines, New Models, from Berlin, who are going to come and do some short podcasts with some of the speakers. So I'm excited to see the conversations that come out of that. And of course, you know, the videos will all live online to be shared and watched at a later date. But I mean, I think the most important thing is how do these conversations live on? What can come out of that? And you know, of course, they can take place in digital spaces, social media spaces. But I'm hoping that festivals like Tentacular, which attempt to invest in the creation of new knowledge production, can be a catalyst for ideas that then go on to circulate in other festivals, in other rooms, can move the conversation forward in some capacity. What's the name of the exhibition that Olga did the exhibition design for with Tomas Saraceno? At the
It's at the Thyssen Museum. Yeah, it's Dominic Gonzalez Foster and Tomas Saraceno.
Yeah. I haven't been, but it looks good. I want to go. That's what I'm doing this weekend.
So many shows that I've seen in Madrid throughout the years, but I will always remember, for instance, now I can still see the image of a Janet Cardiff exhibition at the Reina Sofia venue, which is in the Retiro Park, in the Palacio de Cristal, because it was like one of my favorite artists in the world.